Hi, everyone. This is Ronnie Brady with the Tempest Debate team. This is the topic analysis video on the April and May topic. The United States ought to guarantee universal child care. So, what is universal child care? In America, local governments provide schooling for children beginning in kindergarten. For a long time, our societies viewed the education of children as an obvious necessity. Still, new research suggests that children would benefit from beginning structured learning at a much earlier age. Access to high-quality childcare promotes strong relationships. It also supports vocabulary, early literacy skills, and healthy behaviors. Some politicians and local leaders have presented low-cost and no-cost childcare plans for all children beginning at an early age. Plans vary, but the general idea is to make childcare a public service. It's much the same as our current public school systems. The next bullet we provided is a plan that was actually offered by Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's the main real-world policymaker on this topic, so I'm sure you'll hear her name a lot. So her plan was a federal program that would make childcare available to all families at no cost or an affordable cost, establish quality standards that would support child development, provide comprehensive child development services for children who need support, and strengthen pay and benefits for the childcare and early education workforce. Now onto some definitions. Definition debate, deciphering the resolution. First word you're going to want to define is ought. It's defined by Merriam-Webster as used to express an obligation. It's especially useful if you're using the value morality with this definition. You're going to want to say it's used to express a moral obligation because that ties the resolution into your value. The second word we're going to define is guarantee. There are two definitions. One is Cambridge Dictionary's a promise that something will be done or will happen, and the use of the term guarantees imply that there cannot be a risk of someone not receiving childcare. And the third phrase, the main topic of the resolution that we're going to define is universal childcare. So this was the same definition I provided on the earlier slide, but just to go over, it's access to high quality childcare that promotes strong relationships, and it supports like all these think of like daycare, but think of it as regulated by the government. So it's going to support literacy for children starting at a young age, and it's going to become at no cost or affordable cost to families. And don't feel like you're bound to these definitions. These are just ideas. Now we'll give you some affirmative arguments. The first one's really interesting. It's actually a feminist critique argument, or you can simply put it as a contention, but it's about women empowerment, that when they do not have to take care of their children in the home, and these children are provided with their childcare services as per the resolution, they were free to go into more jobs, which in turn incentivizes more economic growth. So publicly funded childcare can also support economic growth by increasing the participation of women in the labor force and expanding the tax base. Childcare is not an expensive investment towards a more gender-balanced, resilient economy. COVID-19 recovery represents a genuine opportunity to change the national conversation, and it helps the economy when work. Research shows that when it's economically beneficial for families too, for 40% of women are their family's breadwinners. So that's cut from a source that is obviously in favor of this resolution. And you can also make a really good structural bias argument. So minorities, often people of color, face the most resource disparities in childcare. This plan will make it more equitable, ensure that all kids receive the same care and opportunities. And this quote says, it also supports vocabulary, early literacy skills, and healthy behaviors. Some politicians and local leaders have presented low cost and no childcare plans for all children beginning at an early age. So obviously there's going to be a really good, like Winter and Layton has good cards on structural violence. So that's going to be a good framework and contention you could tie together. Is just how it helps minorities in particular. Some more affirmative arguments is that it increases the American standard of living on par with the rest of the developed world. This promotes our US image to the rest of the world. The United States has also always stood out among wealthy nations, and often less than wealthy nations, for its stark lack of policies that support families. We're the only industrialized country that doesn't offer some kind of paid family leave. We lack any sort of child allowance, a monthly or weekly cash supplement from the government to help parents raise children, a policy that is a standard fare in most other nations. For one of the richest countries in the world, child poverty rates have remained persistently high in America, and the lack of affordable childcare has become a national crisis, with daycare costing parents more in-state tuition than half the country. So this is just an argument saying that if we pass this plan, we would get on par with the rest of the developed world, and the rest of like industrialized nations wouldn't like view us as like less than them because we have the same standards or even better standards of life than they do. Also, you can make a good rights-based framework using Kant. So adults make decisions on children's behalf. So who are protecting their rights is essentially the question here, because you don't have like a bunch of like kids like in like make voting and like in like congressional chambers. It's always going to be the adults that are deciding for them. So are they entitled to rights too? Is the moral question we pose. And the country is judged by how it treats its children is a quote by Nelson Mandela, who is a popular children's activist on this topic. Now for some negative arguments. So you can make really good turns to some of the affirmative arguments. You could say that this childcare policy would actually be worse for children because nothing guarantees that the childcare conditions will be good. We just know that we're implementing this sort of like childcare, but we don't know what it entitles. So there's a study done in Quebec that said on average 2 to 4-year-old children who had in childcare showed significantly increases in anxiety, aggression, and hyperactivity, and experienced more hostile, inconsistent parent by lower quality parent-child relationships compared to children who had not attended. So these like prop behaviors and social behaviors just became a bigger issue. You can also see that it led to more 4.5 had higher average rates of risk-taking behaviors such as alcohol, tobacco use, drug use, stealing or harming property, and participating in unsafe activities. So this quote, the source said that like parent and children relationships are really good. So that went like to their development and like morals and stuff. So when you're still separating the children from their parents and putting them in these childcare programs, you're just breeding a more like criminal and risky like behavior in the children. So more negative arguments. So there's a plethora of potential counterplans to this topic. When Senator Warren introduced this to Congress, the reason it didn't get passed is because people believe that there are so many more alternatives that would have been better. So there's a WIC counterplan, which would be federally funded programs such as Medicaid and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children. So these already provide services to large proportions of low-income mothers and some fathers during pregnancy and the first years of the child's life, the period when parents' understanding of important and responsive nurturing interactions with the developing child is especially crucial. So this is something that has already been enacted, and the argument would be to expand this, and this would get all the benefits provided by the affirmative while also like avoiding whatever disadvantages you pose are in the plan. And you can also pass the argue for the CTC counterplan. So this would be increasing flexibility of the federal child tax credit. And so you could also just argue that the main advantages of these is that they're better for women simply, and then you can provide alternatives like ways to eliminate the wage gap, enforce equal pay, and more women in STEM programs. So if the only contention that the affirmative has is that it would be better for like women empowerment, then you could just say like, hey, there's so many better ways to do this than like assuming that women's jobs are intrinsically tied to their children. You could be like, we can already eliminate the wage gap or provide more opportunities for women. So yeah, that's just a brief overview on this topic and some arguments you can run. Thank you for watching.